Hi, Michael Patine here for another episode of It's Cuppa Time. Today, I'm going to explore sound and talk about sound and how we develop sound, also how we develop our ear for sound. I watch a lot of videos and I watch a lot of people playing gongs, and a lot of it I don't think people really understand the sounds that they're making or attempting to make. So I really want to dive deep into that and take a look at making sounds, listening to sounds, and developing your sound. So I'm going to just play a soundscape on the 32-inch Symphonic gong here. I'm going to start it very quietly. I'm going to bring it up, bring it back down. And what I want you to do is both listen, hopefully through high quality speakers or headphones, listen to the sound, how it changes, and watch how I move around the gong and manipulate it to bring about these changes. And then we'll talk about all of this afterwards. Okay, so there we have kind of a short soundscape on one gong. Building it up, bringing it down, building it up, bringing it down, and developing different tones. Now when I want the fundamental note of the gong and get the lowest sound out of the gong, I tend to concentrate here, right under the center circle. And in the case of this gong, right on the stamped Paiste logo. And I choke up on the mallets. So it's very little force, very little motion here. But I'm activating the lowest tones I can get. Now when I want to get more out of the gong and to get more higher frequencies, I need to excite more of the gong, because playing here will just excite the low tones. So from here, if I move out towards the edge, then I start to get more flex in the face. Here, it's just this part is moving, and it's just moving in and out, sort of slowly. The circumference of the gong isn't doing much. It's mostly right here. So from here, if I move out, I start to get the whole surface flexing, and that brings in the higher tones. So here's my low note. I'll listen as I move outward. And I won't be playing, in the case of this too, I think it's important to notice I'm not going to be increasing how hard I hit the gong as much as I'm going to move out. I might hit it a little harder, but it's not like suddenly I'm going from this to this, no. But it's more moving out and getting more of the gong to flex. That's what's bringing in the higher tones. So let's establish our low tone. And you can see I'm really choked up on the mallets. Now I'm gonna move back a little on the mallets and move out. You can hear that a little more highs. Now if I apply just a little more pressure, you can hear that. You hear how it swells up. And we get these beautiful overtones happening. And again, that's the whole face of the gong starting to flex, not just the center. Let's listen to that again. So you'll see, I'll start choked up here. I'll move the mallets up a little bit in my hands just to get a little more swing. And I'll move out, and I'm not going to be swinging hard. I never have to do any of this. And I can play So Loud I Hurt Your Ears without having to do this, because it's all in the stroke. It's not in the arms. But I'll move up a little just so I get a little more motion here, and I'll increase the force or the pressure slightly. It's not a lot, and I can control that. I can open the gong up, I can back off and have it quiet down just by little changes in the force. Let's do that one more time and pay attention to what's happening here. If I really want to get things activated, I'll start moving back and forth, or sometimes up and down, so that I'm striking the gong in multiple places and really getting the whole membrane, the whole surface to activate. So let me demonstrate that. that opened right up? Suddenly it went from boom to all these high notes coming out. And all I was doing was moving back and forth to get more of the gong in motion. But I didn't really increase my force. Now let's do that again, and I'll increase the force and really bring it out. You can hear how that just opened up. The bloom was right there. It was just, we had the whole gong activated. We had a beautiful full sound. Still kept the lows, but then it had all the mids and the highs coming in. Now sometimes, if you put too much force in, you end up with all the highs, and you miss that low note, that fundamental note. But if you work with it, you can get the full spread. And as you notice, I wasn't swinging. I wasn't playing that hard. Just a little more force, but just moving back and forth to get the whole face in motion. And everything was always under my control. To me, that's the most important thing. I want to be able to control what I'm doing, and I want to know what's going on. I know if I play here, I'm going to get the fundamental. I know if I move out, I can bring in harmonics, different ones. And sometimes you might have heard that one. There was that one high note that really started coming out. Sometimes I can maintain that by keeping the pressure the same, staying in the same place, and working with it. If you find a note that pops out that you want to use, often you can keep it going. You can just work with it. Let's do this one more time. I'll open it up a little more. I just notice how the whole gong blooms, but I'm not putting massive force into it. And then I'll bring it back down. And one thing about moving the mallets in my hand, it's so second nature. I don't even notice I'm doing it. I mean, I just, move, drop it too. But I just move them up and down as I'm playing, as I'm feeling things, and it's very second nature. It's never like, okay, let's move the mallet up. No, I just do it because I've worked on this technique for so many years. So here we go, one more time. So there, I was able to bring the gong up, open it, swell it to a big swell, and then drop it down. It was always under my control. So that's why I always advocate you need to practice with your instruments. You have to be able to do it. And different gongs will react differently. If I had a 32-inch Chinese chow or Chinese wind gong up here, it would react differently, and I'd have to know how to work it and how to open it up. So I'm always practicing with my different gongs. I'm rotating gongs because I have so many of them that I like to use, and I need to understand how they work. Okay, just to show you how this idea transfers, I've put up a different gong. This is the Paiste bronze gong number 1. Very different character. It's made out of bronze instead of nickel silver, V8 bronze. It's a completely flat face with very large hammer marks. So it's a very different style gong than a symphonic. But we'll do the same sort of thing and play around with that. All right. And you can see the same ideas playing just below the center, just getting that fundamental tone out of it, just vibrating this area of the face, then moving out, getting more of the gong flexing, bringing in more of the higher tones. Okay, let's try this now. This is the number 9 Paiste bronze gong. Again, a very different gong than the number 1 bronze or the symphonic. This is a fairly flat face, little raised in the center here, not much of a raise. A little bit prominent hammer marks, but certainly nothing like on the number 1. And the big difference in this is a very shallow rim. Most Paistes will have a much deeper rim here. So we'll do the same thing on this one. Again, that same sort of idea. Now we'll try something a little different. This is a Chinese sun gong, which is sort of a cross between a chow and a wind gong. It's a flat gong without a rim, but unlike where a wind gong is completely lathed on the front, this is only lathed in these few circles. So that leaves the black rings as being slightly thicker, and it tends to control the overtones a little more, whereas this typical wind gong will be real splashy. This will have a little more focus, and I like to think of them as sort of between a wind gong and a chow gong. But we'll do the same thing on this. So we'll start out just under the center, kind of get that fundamental going. We'll move around, get this activated. This is a much thicker, heavier bronze than a typical Paiste is. This is a B20 bronze. The Paiste bronze gongs are B8. Their other gongs are NS12 nickel silver. So this is a different alloy, and it's much heavier. It probably weighs twice as much as one of the Paiste bronze gongs. It's a real heavy sort of gong. But the same sort of ideas apply. And again, practicing. This is very different than the other gongs I've just played. So I need to approach it in a different way, although it works in a similar manner. Now you can see I had to back off on my mallets a little more. I had to use a little more stroke to get this one going because it's more mass. It's much heavier, much thicker, different type of bronze that reacts differently, and it just takes more muscle to get B20 Chow, Sun, or Wind Gong going than it does most of the European nickel silver gongs or the Paiste B8 bronze gongs, which are much thinner. It doesn't take as much to open up. You can see I had to move down, and you notice my swing became much bigger, and I had to put a little more force into it to get it to open. But on all these gongs, I've never Now, I've never been hammering them. There's no need to. It's never been arm motion. If you notice, it was all wrist or more just the fingers. In here, more fingers, maybe just a little wrist. But it's never arm. And I can, like I said, I can play loud enough to hurt your ears with just about any gong, and I don't have to do this. And I see a lot of people doing all this arm motion, which is totally unnecessary. With the proper technique, you can get all the volume you need, mostly with your fingers and your hands and maybe some wrists. And I only use the arm to move the mallets around. So I can play here, or if I want to go to a gong over here, I use my arm to move the mallet over there, but I'm not using my arm to actually hit. So I hope you got something out of this, something that you can practice. And again, you need to just practice, and you need to listen to what's going on in your gong or your gongs, because each one is different. You need to listen. How do I get this sound? How much pressure? Where should I hold the mallet? Okay, I want to get more sound. How do I open this gong up? How do I bring it back down? These are things you need to practice. And I hope you would go back and watch this video again now that we've discussed all this, especially that first bigger gong wash that I did on the 32-inch Symphonic. Now that I've talked about all these techniques, listen to it and watch what I'm doing and find a correlation between my mallet technique and the sound that I'm getting out of the gongs. So get to work. Keep practicing. Improve your skills. Become the best gong player you can be. Thanks. We'll see you next time on It's Cuppa Time.